is this?
You tell me your name, I'll tell you mine.
I don't think so.
What's that noise?
Popcorn.
You making popcorn?
Uh-huh.
I only eat popcorn at the movies.
Well, I'm getting ready to watch a video.
Really? What?
Oh, just some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
In the early 1980s, horror movies started to blow up in popularity. Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre were all known throughout the world for their murderous intentions and bloodbath films, as long as the MPAA didn't get to them. But by the late 1980s and early 90s, horror icons and horror movies in general started to fall from grace, from running out of ideas, over repetitiveness, and people simply just not being entertained anymore. Wes Craven noticed this and did something to revive the horror movie genre. Scream. The movie that saved the horror slasher genre, Scream, released in 1993, was a satire horror movie that audiences fell head over heels for. Ghostface put slashers back on the map after almost a decade of bland slashers, providing suspense, dark comedy, and mystery of who could be the killer.
Everybody's a suspect!
With Scream 6 coming out today and Scream 7 already being greenlit, no one knew when the first movie came out that Scream would be so big that it has its own series. But what was not expected to happen with Scream was that it would become a reality to a 16-year-old girl named Cassie Stoddart. This is the case of Cassie Stoddart. This is Juby After Dark. On September 22nd, 2006, Cassie Stoddart, 16, was house-sitting for her aunt in Idaho. Cassie asked her aunt if she could have her boyfriend come over to their house while she was house-sitting. The aunt not only said yes to Matt coming over, but even offered for him to come over every day if he wants. Cassie was a brilliant teen, and was also a very good person, never doing anything wrong, so her aunt didn't think any problems would arise. So, Cassie invited her boyfriend Matt Beckham. They planned to watch movies and eat popcorn for the night. A few minutes after Matt had arrived, the door rang, and two of Matt's friends arrived, Tori Adamnick and Brian Draper, both also age 16. Cassie was not aware that they were going to be over, nor did she want them to be there, since she promised her aunt that it would just be her and Matt at this house. Matt had told her, however, that this was fine, and they just wanted to hang out with him, and he told them where he was. After 2 hours of them watching a movie, Tori and Brian left as they were bored with the movie that they were watching and said they were going downtown to see a movie at the theater. 15 minutes after they left, the power was turned off in the building. Matt went to the breaker and was able to switch the power back on, but this had scared Cassie so bad that she didn't want to be alone in the house. Matt called his mother to ask permission to stay with Cassie after she'd been shaken by the power going out, but she said no. They were two 16-year-olds in a big, dark, empty house with no supervision at all. The mom did not trust them. Matt's mom even offered for Cassie to come over to their place for the night where they could be monitored, but Cassie promised her aunt to house sit and watch her animals, so she wouldn't leave. So he had no choice but to leave Cassie alone in the house. Sunday, September 24th. Cassie's aunt returned home. They didn't hear anything from Cassie over the days they were gone and didn't expect any issues. Then, as they opened the door, they found Cassie in a pool of blood. She had been stabbed 30 times. The first suspect was Cassie's partner, Matt, who was brought in for questioning. Just like in Scream, the boyfriend turned out to be one of the killers in this movie. What was strange is that when he was interrogated, it didn't feel like he had any remorse or shock to what happened to his girlfriend. Matt's mom also attested that she did pick him up at 9:30 p.m. and brought him home. But that didn't mean that Cassie might not have been alive before she picked him up. He could have killed her right then and there and the mom would not have seen it. Matt was given a polygraph test and passed it, but before he left the station, he mentioned that Tori and Brian were also there earlier, but had gone to the movies before he left, and even had the tickets to prove that they were there. Tori and Brian were brought in for questioning, but with all three boys having strong alibis, it seemed like the police weren't going to make any progress. That was until one detective asked Tori and Brian a question that forever changed where the investigation was heading. How was the movie? Tori and Brian couldn't say anything about the film, the plot, characters, anything at all. Brian and Tori were movie fans, especially horror movies, and even made their own films in high school. The officers kept hammering them about the movie and bringing up how they are known for being the movie gods in school. That was when Brian finally broke down, not in tears, but in a low voice, and said, "Alright, we didn't go to the movies. I was lying because we did something very, very bad." Both the boys then admitted to breaking into a couple of cars before arriving home by 11 p.m. But of course, this is not what happened. Here's what happened to Cassie the night of her murder. After Matt had left for that night, the power went out again. Then it started to flicker faster and faster. Cassie was then aware that someone was clearly doing this to her. She was scared to investigate, but was also scared to stay put in fear of getting hurt. Then the lights went out completely. She would hear all sorts of noises from all across the house. Stomping, banging, noises from upstairs. Anything at all to frighten her. Finally, a masked man appeared right next to Cassie, just like Ghostface does in the movie Scream. A second masked man appeared as well, and they ganged up on Cassie, pinning her to the ground and stabbing her a total of 30 times. After a few minutes of checking reports from the night of Cassie's death, there were no reports of cars being broken in. Still, the boys would not admit to the murder, so the forensics team had to be called in. But the boys asked for their attorneys and had to be let go that night legally. But the next morning, Brian came into the police station and was ready to make a confession. Brian then told them that they went into the house with knives and scary masks, and it was only intended to scare Cassie, not actually hurt her. Tori is the one that actually stabbed her to death. The detectives didn't believe that Brian wasn't involved in it equally. But without any physical evidence, the officers could not convict them according to the law. The police scoped the area, but it found to be completely clean, besides Cassie's body, of course. Brian then spoke once again and said that they got rid of the evidence on an abandoned road. Brian led the officers there, and everything the officers needed to convict them was there. Masks, knives, and even something that no one expected to find. A videotape. On the tape was something extremely shocking. There was a recording of Tori and Brian ranting about their plan and their views of Satan and the world. Hearing their reactions to their plan made it very clear that they enjoyed what they were going to do, and take pleasure in the killing. They even recorded themselves talking about their plan to kill Cassie that night, and even said sorry to Cassie's family that she had to die. Cassie was apparently only supposed to be the first girl to die to them, as they admitted on tape that they planned on to keep killing girls in their school. With Matt being there when they arrived, they did not want to cancel their plan and planned to lure Matt out of the house, kill him as well, then go for Cassie. When Matt left the house, it only made their job simpler. When Brian was at the house, he went to go use the bathroom, and on his way, he unlocked the back door to the house so they could enter later on. My heart goes out to Cassie, as her last few minutes before her death must have been a nightmare come to life, and the fact that her killers took so much pleasure in it. As hard as it was to watch the tape, the police had exactly what they needed to lock the boys in prison. The public wanted answers as to why the boys even did this, and this is where the connection to Scream really came into play. In the movie, Billy and Stu did not have a motive, even listing off other famous movies where the killers didn't have motives.
You hear that, Stu? I think she wants a motive. I don't really believe in motive, Sid. I mean, did Norman Bates have a motive?
No.
Did they ever really decide why Hannibal Lecter liked to eat people?
Don't think so.
See, it's a lot scarier when there's no motive, Sid.
Tori and Brian mirrored this motive exactly by not having one at all. Brian and Tori were found guilty on August 24th, 2007, and were sentenced for life with no way of getting parole. These monsters even tried to appeal their sentence, saying that there was problems with the search warrant. Thankfully, no one listened to them. So was Scream attacked because of this? It seems like this was the perfect story for media who loves to blame video games and movies for people murdering others. And yes, this did happen in the media for only a little bit because it was just a movie, not a video game, which was the prime target at the time. You are responsible for your own actions. Artistic creations are extremely different from actual real-life scenarios. Tori and Brian got exactly what they wanted from this case. As quoted by Brian, "We're gonna go down in history. We're gonna be just like Scream, except in real-life terms." Thank you all so much for watching this Juby After Dark, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the constant uploads to the Juby After Dark series. For all my other fans who are interested in my other types of content, this will be the last Juby After Dark in a row episode, as we will be going back to some other content starting next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all really enjoyed. And if you're a Scream fan, enjoy Scream 6. I'm going to see it tomorrow, actually, and I'm very excited. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week.